All right. So once again, thank you for your patience. I am Joanna Shakti. This is a conversation just for men. Let's get real. And this is a conversation that is about love. It's about sex. It's about intimacy. It's about relationships. It's about passion. And this creature called women and this creature called men, and how we're different, how we're the same, how we relate, what our needs are, what our turn-ons are, how we communicate differently, how we meet each other. This is a conversation for men who are single, who are in relationship. And there are many things that we can talk about to the singles that absolutely apply to the couples, and many things that we talk about from a couple standpoint that absolutely applies to the singles as well. So in a moment, I'm going to first introduce myself a little bit for those of you that haven't spent direct time with me before, and tell you just a little bit about me and why I'm hosting a call just for men as a woman. And then I'm going to open this up and we can chat in the chat window. You can send me comments on the Facebook Live. You can actually raise your hand and I'll be able to actually open up your microphone and you can talk to me live. So this is a rare chance that I open up conversations with men and women, in this case, just men, who are not actively enrolled in one of my programs. Normally, I would be doing a call like this live with those that are enrolled and steeping in the Soul Love program series. But I was really called to say, guys, let's have a conversation, because there are so many ways that, and so many programs, honestly, and so many calls that are just for women. And there's a few that are just for men, but not many. And I admire you guys, and I think you have a tough time. And I also am really committed to this dance of, in this case, I'm predominantly tonight talking about heterosexual relationships. But if you're in a same-sex relationship, you can absolutely benefit from this. And tonight, it's about the men and the women and our dynamic together. So with that, as I mentioned, whoops, come back here. Where's my, I saw chat. And so I'm pausing because I've got, let's see, chat window. Okay, perfect. I want to make sure, like I said, because this is a call to support each and every one of you, I want to make sure that I am continuously monitoring those that are asking questions. So with that, me, why am I having a call for men? Who am I? Why does this matter to me? Well, they call me the Soul Love Mentor. And soul love, what does soul love mean? Well, soul love to me is a love that brings together every part of who we are. It brings together heart. It brings together sex. It brings together our emotions. I know I just said emotions on a call about men. But maybe tonight we'll talk about why that's so important. And hint, emotions are the language of intimacy. And this is where you guys have a tough time, because you're actually conditioned not to feel, and you're conditioned not to speak emotions. And yet, you want to melt a woman's heart. You want to connect with her. It's not to melt into your emotions and be all emotional, but it is to connect with them. And so we can talk about what that looks like. And my journey has been very much one of understanding this dance of men and women, and even more importantly, masculine and feminine energy, because we all have masculine and feminine energy within us. But the question really is of having that masculine and feminine energy, which one of them is in the lead for us? Which one takes center stage? And typically there's one that authentically is our predominant energy, the one that would take center stage. And very often they get flip-flopped. And so my story, just a piece of my story, you can read tons of my story on my website at ecstaticintimacy.com. But a piece of my story is that I grew up in the heart of the women's movement. And what the women's movement did for women was teach us how to be like men. And for you guys, at least the men that I used to date, and occasionally it shows up now if I go too much into my business mode, is that when I get into that masculine energy, it's a turnoff. And what happens in so many relationships, and this can happen in dating, it can happen pre-dating with that initial connection, and then it happens a ton the further we get into relationship, is that when we are not engaging with the polarity of masculine and feminine energy, the difference in those energies, well, what happens is it neutralizes all the sexual energy, and we end up in the friend zone. We end up in the roommate zone. And so when we end up in that roommate zone, we wonder what the heck happened, because the hormones were working and sex was good. And then it wasn't. And then maybe it wasn't, it wasn't as good as it used to be. And then sometimes it's not even existent. Why? Why is that happening? Or why is it that we're good friends, but we're not great lovers? And why do the upsets last? And so one of the things that happened for me is I was running a lot of masculine energy. Growing up in the heart of the 70s, I got an electrical engineering degree and an MBA, and I went to work in the oil and gas and high-tech industries. And I prided myself on outmanning the men. And then I wondered why they lost interest. Or I wondered why I kept attracting the nice guys when what I really wanted were not the bad boys. And we can talk about that tonight if that's one of the topics you want to bring in. But it was, I wanted the assertive guys. I used to say, where are all the men who can meet me? Or where are the men that can be stronger than me? But I wasn't giving men a chance. And then I woke up. And I discovered that a lot of men have been conditioned to disown their masculinity. And a lot of women have been conditioned to disown their femininity. And we've tried to think that equal meant the same. But equal doesn't mean the same. Equal means we have equal opportunities. We have equal choices. But what we did in our pursuit for equalness is we neutralized our sexual energy. We neutralized the chemistry, and we got rid of this idea of authenticity because we made it wrong for women to be women and we made it wrong for men to be men. So guys, I'm standing here. I woke up to see that there was a time, and yes, there's a time that I support women, and to have them come back into who they truly are as women. And then there's a time to invite men to really understand us as women, but also to call you guys back into not giving you the opportunity, because it's your choice, but it is the call to say, we want you to be men. And what does that look like in today's world? And what does it look like to have a really soulful relationship that brings together body, heart, soul, mind, and spirit? I like to say where heart and sex meet and spirit leads. And so what does all that mean? And so there was a wake-up call for me that I'm like, oh my God, that's why I'm divorced. That's why I walk around going, where are all the men who are sexually uninhibited? Well, because I kept attracting the ones that were inhibited because I was inhibited. So there's another point of our relationships is when you're seeing a pattern in what you attract, guys, doesn't matter. It might look like mine, might look like a different one. But when you keep seeing a pattern show up, either with different women or over and over in your relationship, it's not a problem over there. It's a problem. It's a challenge in here. And really, it's an opportunity in here. It's an opportunity for you to get to show up as more of the man that you are. And believe me when I say that when you find and show up as the man that you are, it will impact your life from the boardroom to the bedroom and everywhere in between. I can't tell you how often I have men come to me after working with me for short periods of time and go, wait a second, I really came to work with you because I was getting a divorce, or I wanted to meet my soulmate, or I wanted better sex and my business is getting better. Well, of course, because when you show up, more of you, it gets better everywhere. And so that's a little bit about me. I've studied sacred sensuality and Tantra. I'm an advanced certified tantric educator. I am deeply steeped in male-female dynamics and the differences between us, as well as the connection and the similarities between us. Every aspect of communication and love. And I say every aspect, there are definitely things I have not studied and steeped for years, over 15 years since I left the corporate world, and made a commitment to serve men and to serve women so that we can come together in this ecstasy and in this passion. And so that's a little bit about who I am and why I do what I do. And it's an honor, honestly, to sit here with a group of men tonight is an incredible honor, because women are hungry for conscious, powerful, authentic, masculine men. And if you're not predominantly masculine, that's okay too, because there are women who are also attracted. There are women who want to attract feminine men. But what's really key is that you figure out who you are and you be it, because then you are going to reignite your partnership that you're already in, or you're going to attract the women and eventually the soulmate who will meet you and create that ecstatic relationship where the love is running deep, where the intimacy is powerful, and where the passion is hot. So with that, there are multiple ways that you can ask me questions tonight. One of them is via the comments on Facebook. One of them is to chat with me in the chat window. And I noticed that there's already at least one question up there. I'll check if there's more. And you can also raise your hand, because I'd love the honor of coaching you directly, talking specifically about what's going on for you. So with that, I am turning this conversation over to you. I have some questions that came in ahead of time from people, so we'll dance back and forth with some of my questions that came in ahead of time, as well as what you guys really bring into this conversation that are here and took the courage to show up and go, I don't know what I'm getting into, because I'm guessing a few of you went, I don't know what this is going to be like, but I'll just show up. So thank you for having the courage to just show up. And the truth is, that's one of the things that really attracts women, to have the courage to show up and stand up and be who you are, and also take that risk of being vulnerable. So thank you. And so the first question that's actually here is, what happens when your spouse is ill? It's a really great question. And I will say right up front, that's without more detail, that's a tough one for me to answer. And I'll give you a bit of what I can answer, is really looking at what it is that's being called forth when you go in and you really listen. Because guys, you have so much insight. We talk about a woman's intuition, but you have gut feelings and you have knowings. And when you really trust yourself, you will know what's being called forth. You will know what your soul wants you to stand for, how it wants you to show up. And it doesn't matter whether that's about illness, whether that's about a challenge in relationship. Like, I invite you to go within and listen to the part of you that knows more than your mind. Because here's one of the things that I know about men is you like to think things through. And that's great. But usually our mind, when it comes to relating, our mind doesn't give us the answers. There's something much deeper. And I won't even in this moment go as far as saying it's emotional, but what I can say is that your gut, your body is your guide. The body is a barometer. And so if you've got that gut feeling that's like, I know this is where I need to go, then follow it. If you've got that, there's an angst, or there's a tightness, or there's, something going on in the chest, like those are places to check in and go, okay, what's my body telling me? What is this part of me that knows? Because the mind doesn't figure this stuff out, but the body will always guide you. And I know that can sound weird, and this is something I have to coach women on as well, but it is an opportunity to really find out what the truth is for you. And if you need a sounding board, then use the sounding board. If that's me and you want to reach out, well, then there's an opportunity to do that there as well. The other thing is sound it out with a buddy, sound it out with a spiritual advisor, but listen because you know. All right, there's a couple more questions. So let's see. So my wife and I are over 60 and trying to rekindle a relationship gone stagnant after a 20 plus year marriage. This is something that I hear commonly, and it doesn't often take 20 plus years. Sex has been absent for over 15 of those years. And now it's hard to find ways to be intimate and find that lost spark. Thank you. This is a really important question. And it doesn't take being over 60. It doesn't take menopause. It doesn't take 20 plus years of marriage to have this challenge. So that happens to be the circumstances of this question. But for many of you, look at where that spark is or isn't alive. And here's some things that can contribute to that. One, actually, I'm going to give you some things that can contribute to dampening that spark. And then how do you begin to reignite it? And so some of the things that cause the spark to go out is unspoken resentments. What do I mean by resentments? Because that was a word that people used with me when I was starting to do this work. And, what do you resent? And what are you resentful for? And I'm like, I don't get that word. Like, I don't know. But here's the simple definition of resentment. It's what did we stuff? What did we not say? What happened where we were hurt, we were mad, we were pissed off, we didn't get our needs met. There was a topic that just kept coming up and we were arguing about it over and over, whether it was money, it was sex, it was the kids, it was the house, it was career stuff, the things that we needed to talk about, but we didn't. And most particularly the things that were causing us some form of upset and you didn't talk about it. And I know for a lot of men, it's how quickly can we get out of this conflict? All I want to do is fix it and get out. Guys, fixing it and getting it out in your mind is often a surface solution. And it does actually contribute to zapping the spark. So thing one is to look at all the stuff that has been stuffed under the rug and not talked about over the years, because it's a really good, we can use sex and intimacy and menopause or any kind of sexual conditioning. We can use all of that. Kids, we can use all of that as a reason, a justification for sex not having the spark, not the attraction not being there, the chemistry not being there. But the first thing you got to look at before we even worry about what's going on in the bedroom is we got to worry about what you have and haven't been saying to each other. And so that's critically important to get stuff out on the table, because here's the simple picture. You stuff it under the rug and you stuff it under the rug and you stuff it under the rug and you stuff it under the rug. And the rug starts to, for a while, that rug's really flat. And so it's big and it can take quite a bit. But after a while, you keep stuffing it. Well, that pile starts to grow in the middle. And one of you standing on this side of that pile under the rug, and one of you standing on this side under that pile under the rug. And you got to kind of look over and you're like, I don't know if I love you anymore. No, I don't want to have sex tonight. I'd much rather hang out with my guys. I'd much rather watch TV. I'd much rather read my book. I'd rather go to bed early. But all kinds of excuses. But it's because you can't see and feel each other anymore. And there's so much crap in between your hearts that you got to clean it up. And uniquely, how do you do that? We can come back to that. But you've got to figure out what's under that rug and get rid of it. And it doesn't have to be as drawn out of a process as what you think it is, but it is an important piece of the puzzle. So that's piece one. Now, piece two, there's all kinds of physical dynamics that go on, but there's also with women, one of the things that happens is that when we're not feeling seen, when we're not feeling valued, when we're not feeling like we're important, we can lose interest. When we imagine that we're not that important to you, we can lose interest. Like, there's a needs model that I teach in my Activating Soul Love program. And the very first need for a woman is to feel. And what's cool about this model is there's 6 core needs, and 3 for women, 3 for men. And when these needs aren't being met, it will explain any upset. It will explain why that upset is going on, because you can take almost any upset and look, and at least one of those 6 needs, and usually multiple of those 6 needs, aren't being met. So it's really important to be able to, because then when we can see that, we can diffuse the upset really quickly. But I want to give you the first need for women in that model. And it is that she needs to feel, and that's an important word, I'm underlining that. She needs to feel like she's number one in your world. Now, the truth is, for men and the masculine, your relationship isn't actually number one. Usually your mission and your purpose, what you're doing in life, what you're contributing, what you're generating in life is the most important thing. However, in your relationship, and then hence in your bedroom, she needs to feel like she's number one. And feel, like I said, is the underlying word. So it's what are the kinds of things that you're doing that create that experience for her to feel number one. And that's going to be an incredible turn on for her. Another aspect of sexuality that can zap the spark is eventually we can get frustrated because it doesn't actually work all that well. We're not, maybe there is the body changing, and that might constitute more need for foreplay. But another thing that I see in relationships is that, and this applies to the bedroom and sex, but it applies to so many other areas of relationship, is that we imagine that our bodies and our minds and our emotions work like the others. So I, as a woman, look over there and imagine that you work like I do. You don't. You, sitting in that man's body, look over here at your woman and you think she works like you do. And as a matter of fact, you try to get her to act like you do, and to be more logical and be more rational and be less emotional and be more organized. And I could go on and on with some of those judgments, to do things the way you do, to speak the way you do, to get to the point the way you do. She can't. And so let's go back to the bedroom. The ways that she gets turned on, what she needs in foreplay, can be very, very different than how you get turned on. There's one of my other videos that's over on YouTube, and I think it's on my site as well, that talks about men and women being like kitchen appliances. And men, you're much more like the microwave. Turn it on for 30 seconds, a minute or two, and it's hot. And well, for women, we're much more like that crock pot that you plug in the morning, and you put all the ingredients in the morning, and then it heats slowly all day, and maybe it gets stirred a few times during the day. Like, she's slow to turn on. And so how you want to look at, how do you get the heat going on that crock pot so that you get a hot, juicy, wet woman at night? And so here's one of the things that with these questions, without talking individually, I can give you a lot of, here's some areas that you want to look in. And for every man that's on this call tonight, I'm going to give you an opportunity to meet one-on-one with me privately at a super discounted rate. So that you, if I'm not answering specifically your situation, I want you to be able to have that opportunity to get specific if we're not talking voice to voice tonight. So I'll tell you about that in a little bit, but I wanted to say, I know that I can't, when I'm answering questions that are written in, I can't give you those detailed specific answers for you, but I'm going to give you the best answers that I can, and then you'll have an opportunity to meet with me privately to go in more depth with you and talk about exactly what's going on. So those are some of the key things to start reigniting that passion. And one of the biggest things is get rid of the crap that's in the way. And then start to get to know each other uniquely. Remember that a woman needs to feel cherished. She needs to feel like she's number one in your world. And if she doesn't feel like that, she's not going to typically be terribly interested in sex. And then you really got to learn the turn-ons. And the more a woman's body changes, the more important that foreplay process is. So if there's follow-up to that question, please, again, send me more comments. Okay, so let's see. So this one, the second question, again, very similar to the first. And this is, I get this question so often. We've been married for a long time. And how do we heat this back up? And so again, let me read this specifically. Yeah, and so the specific piece, my wife is not as sexual as me. So, and this can happen. There are times when actually the woman is more sexual in the relationship, but very commonly it is that men are wanting more sexuality. So your job really is to discover what it is that really ignites her fire. And there's some specific things I gave you, knowing how she feels, that how you feel about her is going to be incredibly important. And it's not about how you feel about her physical body. It's yes, like she wants to know that you like her body. And she also wants to know that you like who she is and that you really welcome all of her. I've worked with men where they, on a lot of levels, don't like her emotions. And so they try to get her to shut her emotions down. But here's the problem, guys. When you shut her emotions down, you shut down her sexuality. Let me say that again. When you shut down her emotions, when you try to get away from her emotions, oh my God, how do I fix it? How do I stop her from crying? You're shutting down her sexuality, because the same energy that brings her emotions, brings her creativity, brings her wildness, brings her expression of sexiness. So she's got to have it all. And this is part of the learning for men, is how do you embrace all of a woman? The part of her that is wild, the part of her that is emotional, the part of her that is naturally a motherer and a nurturer, because all of those pieces actually make things hot. And how do you meet her? And oh, by the way, here's another one that we'll talk about. The cosmic joke. The cosmic joke is she gets turned on in her heart, and that turns on her sexuality. You get turned on in your sexuality, and that turns on your heart. Damn it. Like, wait, why does it have to be opposite? Cosmic joke. And the truth is, and again, we dive into this really deeply in the Activating Soul Love program. We dive in deeply in the Conscious Sexuality Retreat. We dive in deeply in the Conscious Relating Retreat. But the truth is, we've got to learn how to honor the difference and how to be able to bring the energy from the sexuality space to the heart space, and bring the energy from the heart space to the sexuality space. But the truth is, her heart's got to feel turned on. Her heart has to be turned on for her sex to be turned on. Now, there are times, and when I work with the women, I teach them a way to start meeting you in sex and come into their heart. But I'm teaching you guys to meet them in heart and come into sex. Because this is where, between the two of you, you've got to bring those two spaces together, where you're both not selling yourselves out, not settling, not sabotaging. Because if you do it just to get her, one, she's going to feel it. And two, if you do it her way, you're eventually going to resent her. That's that, like, I'm tired of doing it your way and I'm pissed. And now there's more junk under the rug. So it's finding this natural dance between heart and sex. And it's critically important. And I don't care if you've been married a year or 30 years. I don't care if you're dating the first few months, because after those first few months, the hormones are wearing off and you have to start dealing with the reality of your sexual compatibility and your sexual differences, and you approach sex differently. So, all right, I'm going to take the next one and then we can come back to that one more. Let's see. All right. What is your interpretation as a knowledgeable woman with the pickup artist community? There seems to be a lot of wisdom, but there is a big stigma from a woman's perspective. Any insight on how to present these activities to a woman of interest? Ooh, I think I got this question. So I'm going to answer it from I think what the question is, because there's a couple of different ways I could read it, but that, you know, how does a woman feel about this pickup artist and the techniques of the pickup artist? Because there's a lot of it online and I'm not a fan of it. But there are some things that are really attractive to women. But give up trying to be an artist, because it's not you. The problem that I see with so many of the men that have come to me after taking some of these online courses on how to pick her up, what to say, what to do, is you're so busy trying to figure out what to say and do. And this can apply to married men as well, absolutely. But you're so busy trying to figure out what to say and do that you're not being you. And so, one, you come across as this charming guy that, you know, does all, you know, has all these great lines and great moves. And then after you got her, you stop doing it because it was never really you. It was the persona. It was the artist. So that's one problem, is if you land it and she's actually drawn in, but then you drop out of pickup artist mode and you go back to the guy that you really are, she's going to say, what the heck happened? And she's not going to like it in all likelihood. So that's one problem. The other problem is we fall in love with authenticity. It's why, have you ever noticed that sometimes the ones that you're least attracted to are the ones that are most attracted to you? Well, they're most attracted to you because you're actually being you, because you're not worried about attracting them. You're not putting on that persona of the guy you're supposed to be. No, you're being you, and she falls in love with that. So you don't need a bunch of techniques. There are some things that are really important. One of them is knowing who you are, where you're going. One of the things about the masculine is when a man stands tall in who he is and he knows where he's going, I think it's David Data that uses this metaphor, is that it's like the masculine is a train. And when you know where your train is going, she can look at it and she can go, is that a train I want to get on? And it is or it isn't, and she can make that choice. But when you're wishy-washy and you don't know really what matters to you, you don't know where you're going, you don't have that direction, like women are attracted. Some of the qualities of the masculine are decisiveness and directness. They're results-oriented. And when she can see that you're moving in a direction, she can decide whether she wants to go in that direction with you and be in that partnership, or she's going to end up fighting you. And another piece of femininity is that when the masculine creates a space for her to soften and surrender. And yes, surrender is not you get to name it all and you get to decide it all and she doesn't get any say in it. But it's that in her trust of you, because you are showing up as a trustworthy man, she can actually fall into and melt into you. And she can feel safe to surrender into her own pleasure and her own orgasm. So pickup artists, I would say chuck that stuff and figure out who you are and be you. And if you're attracted to feminine women, and that's another piece that I'll try to talk about later, because I know that a lot of men are attracted to a strong, independent woman, but then you want her to be feminine as well. You want her to surrender, and you want her to be wild, and you want her to be soft. And yet at the same time, you're wanting her to be strong and independent. Well, that's part of what neutralizes that sexual energy. So if you're attracted to a feminine woman, you've got to stand tall. I call it actually, it's as if you're standing erect. So it's this walking erection, not a sexual energy, but it's erect, it's upward. And from there, like if I ask women that in one of my big events, and say, are you attracted to a man who's standing tall, who knows who he is? And they go, yeah, like he's super attractive. And then I go, okay, great. Now that man who's standing tall knows who he is, knows where he's going. And then he opens his heart. He's still standing tall. And he opens his heart and he shares something intimate and vulnerable with you. And they go, oh my God, yes. So guys, this is part of, don't try to be somebody you're not. Figure out who you are and be it confidently, and be it directly. And it will absolutely turn on the women that are a great fit for you. And as with all of these questions, feel free to then send follow-up comments. Okay, hang on a second. I'm in a 7-month relationship with a beautiful, cool woman where we are spiritually connected. I want to awaken and create my heart connection with her and crank up authentic passion, or we are headed to the friend zone. I had my testosterone checked. It's normal. Before her, I had a string of what I call 180 women where things were going well for several months. And it seems suddenly that they exit unexpectedly. So perhaps a lack of trust in women has creeped in for me. Got it. I want to nix that and awaken and connect my heart, number one, for me, and to create sustained passion with her or with whomever my soulmate turns out to be. Okay, this is great. And so the potential friend zone, or it's going great and then it's not. Like, what happens? And this is, again, without talking specifics of your situation, there's some common things that create that. And one is very often this polarity piece of, I'll often call it the nice guy syndrome, or some people will call it snag, new age, or sensitive new age guy. And so the nice guy who finishes last, or the sensitive new age guy that has so much sensitivity that women are initially drawn to, but eventually it actually begins to turn them off unless it's married with the intensity, the assertion, the directiveness, the ravishing nature of the masculine energy. And so what I see with a lot of men, and you mention this particular man in this question, mentions his heart space a lot, which is fantastic. I was talking about the man who stands upright and solid and knows who he is and then opens his heart. That's sexy. What happens is that too often there's been so much conditioning for men to be more sensitive, to be more compassionate, to be more emotional, which are all great qualities, guys. I'm not saying don't do that. But what I've seen time and time and time and time again with men is that you do that at the expense of your masculinity. And that's what we've got to work with to bring back out, because it is that masculinity that will magnetize her, that will have her hanging and wanting you and going, oh my God. But when the softness and the sensitivity leads the way, all of the polarity falls away. It neutralizes the chemistry. And what ends up happening, our polarity, our chemistry is like magnets. And when they're opposite, masculine with feminine, like a positive and negative end of a magnet, they come together and they stick. And it takes some force to actually pull them apart. But what happens in a case like this, if she's feminine and the sensitive new age guy is coming out, well, now we've got feminine with feminine. And what do they want? When we bring the two positive ends or two negative ends of a magnet together, what do they want to do? They want to repel as fast as possible. Like, oh, I want to get away. It's too much. And so now It's about bringing, for the sensitive new age guys, for the nice guys, it's about bringing you back into your authentic masculine and not selling out your heart, but it's really bringing them into authentic alignment. And for the masculine, it's going to be the predominant energy, and the sensitive energy is going to be the secondary energy. And what I suspect in this case is that it is the sensitive energy that's getting in the way. So I want to say again, I mentioned this earlier, and before I keep going with the next questions and the follow-ups, is that I'm speaking somewhat generically here because I can only go with the detail that's in the written question. And so, guys, if you want to talk with me privately, if you want to dive into what's going on in your life specifically, whether you've got a partner or you're looking for one, I've got a session. It's the only single session that I do with people. And it's called the Igniting Soul Love session. And you can go to my website at Ecstatic Intimacy, and under the What I Offer menu, pick Igniting Soul Love session. And I'm giving you a discount code right now. It's a promotional code that only you guys that are part of this conversation are getting that code. And the code is Men Only. It's in capital letters all together, Men Only. And when you put in that promo code, it's going to save you $130. It's normally $197 to have that hour-long, sometimes a little bit more, conversation with me. And you get it for $67. So if you want what we call an Igniting Soul Love session with me, go to ecstaticintimacy.com, go to What I Offer, and pick Igniting Soul Love session. Enter the promo code Men Only, and then you can automatically register, and it's immediately going to take you to my calendar where you can schedule that session. Literally, there's a couple of spots tomorrow that I opened up. So do that if you want this specifically for you. $67. We will spend an hour looking at what's going on for you, where you're getting stuck, what the challenges are. We're going to look at where you want to go, and we're going to map the roadmap. How do you get there? Because that's the key. If we flounder, we don't know where we're going. We don't know what the steps are. So it's about what are the best next steps for you on your path of soul love that unites heart and sex and spirit and brings it all into that heated love and heated passion. So I'll mention that again in a little bit, but I wanted to give you guys that chance. If you want that time with me, go there and register now. Okay, so let's see. What do I have here? Yes, I'm going to come back to my wife also thinks, let's see. My wife also thinks that sex means intercourse, which came out during counseling recently. Okay. I am more open and inclusive of all sexuality. So when intercourse died, all sexual activity died too. This is a great one. So I'm actually going to write an article and an exercise on this shortly because it was something that was working in some other conversations recently, is the idea of putting sex and sexuality on a spectrum from A to Z. And what a lot of women feel, and so this is why it's so important to talk about sex. And our society and our culture is conditioned not to talk about sex. So the most important thing you can do is develop your capacity to have real conversations, authentic, genuine, maybe embarrassing, but we don't have anything to be embarrassed about. But I can tell you there's times when I'm like, oh my God, am I really saying this? You know, and I've watched men do that too. Oh my God, am I really saying this? And we all feel that way. But we can't have a great sex life if we can't talk about sex. As a matter of fact, I say to singles, if you can't talk about sex before you have sex, don't have sex, because it will absolutely, over the long run, cost you good, hot passion. So, A to Z. A lot of women think that if they even let you kiss them or massage their shoulders, that it means they have to have sex. And women don't always want to, I'm sorry, they want to that you want to have intercourse. And women don't always want to have intercourse. Sometimes we just want to be held. Sometimes we just want to be pleasured with your hands or your lips or your tongue. Sometimes it's just, we want something simple and easy. And we would actually connect at different levels with you if we knew that was an option. But very often, and guys, a lot of times you'll say it's not okay, but she feels the energy of your disappointment if she doesn't give it all to you. And so it's really starting to converse about, negotiate, where you can go from A to D and not have to go all the way to Z. And so letting her know. Another thing that'll happen is that very often that she'll feel like you want her to have an orgasm. And she may know that this is a day she's not going to have an orgasm, because not every woman orgasms all the time. And as I'm sure you know, there are also times that what worked yesterday doesn't work today. There's not a formula with a woman. And so it's about your presence. And it's about learning what are the different options and talking about it. And then when you say it's okay if we don't have intercourse, then live true to that. And don't show her that you're disappointed or that she didn't live up to your expectations because she only went to Q or to K or to C. So figure out, is it okay with you if you don't have intercourse? And then talk about it and show her. Honor your word that if it's okay, it's truly okay. So explore sexuality on the spectrum, the huge spectrum that truly exists. And sometimes after a long time, you've got to spend time with her heart again. And that heart will reawaken the sex when that is pleasured. So pleasure her heart to begin pleasuring her body. Let's see. And if you want to directly interact with me, you can raise your hand. So let's see. Let's see. And so there's another question or a comment that I stand up for what I want. And that's, we have to speak what we want. And when we hold expectations, when we hold obligations, when we hold demands, and I would say this exact same thing to the women. So this is a place that men and women do the same thing. They're often, the subject is different. But if we hold expectations, obligations, and demands, I want this, I need this, this is one of my needs, I have to have this, why aren't you giving this to me? Both of us, doesn't matter what we're talking about, we are going to be running the other direction. So if you feel like she has to give anything to you, including sex, that you deserve it. And the truth is, we all do deserve sex. It is a natural part of our humanness as men and women. And there's owning the truth that I need this, and then there is the expectation that you deliver it. Now, monogamous married relationships, what do? We got to talk about it. We got to find that middle ground. We got to find that common ground to where we can see each other. And if somebody's mad, it's usually because there's those resentments that we talked about back in the beginning of the conversation. The resentments, the anger, the upset that with women, here's another tip for you guys. If you've ever noticed your woman get upset about the same thing over and over again, or she keeps bringing up that past event and she talks about it over and over again, it's because she's not done. And I know you think it's 10 years past, or even 2 weeks or 2 hours past. Why is she still talking about it? Can't she just get over it? I'm over it. She doesn't get over it in the same way that you do. Typically, and this is not always the case, but typically a man can complete with an upset once he gets, it's more of an intellectual, logical, mental thing, once he gets what went wrong. And when you get what went wrong, you think it's done. and you fix the problem. But fixing the problem, doing whatever didn't get done, or saying what wasn't said, or apologizing for what wasn't said or what wasn't done, doesn't usually do it for her. The secret for her, and this goes back to that scary E word that I said earlier, emotion. But that E word is that she needs to hear, or we could call it an F word, it's just the different F word, it's what she feels. The fastest way to end an upset with a woman is to hear and let her know that you heard what she feels. That's an emotion that's going through her body. And even if you speak it out and you don't get the right emotion, but I get that you're really sad right now, or I get that hurt, or I get that pissed you off. And if it's the wrong emotion, she's going to know you at least made an attempt. And then she's going to tell you what she actually feels. And you can go, oh, God. And you may not apologize for what you did, but you can say, I didn't intend for you to feel hurt or unloved or disregarded or unimportant or sad or whatever it might be. But talking to her, acknowledging what she feels, is critically important in completing an upset. And I will tell you that once she gets that you get what she feels, when she gets that you get what she feels, that upset will end so fast. It will shock you. So, question came in, is the igniting session over the phone or in person? They're typically over the phone, depending on where you are. Sometimes we'll do them over a video conference similar to this. If you happen to be in the Colorado area, we can sometimes negotiate those to set those up in person as well. So there are options if that's a question. Most people are very happy with just being in their own space and getting on the phone. But if there's something else that serves you specifically, I know with my international people, we will often get on Skype or video conference just because of connections and telephone service and things like that. So we will make it work for you. And if you want something specific there after you register, just go ahead and send me an email and or reply to the confirmation email, and we'll get it set up the way that best works for you. So it's designed to serve you in the highest and best ways. So you do not have to be in Colorado or near me in order to have one of those sessions. So, and again, those are the promotional code for men is men only, all caps, one word, no space between them, men only. You can register on ecstaticintimacy.com, go under what I offer and select Igniting Soul Love Session. And let's see, what's next? Okay, there's a hand raised. I am going to open up the line here.
The question is, what do you do if you're interested in someone, like a girl, for example, and like I get this where I'll be so interested in getting to know someone, so interested in meeting them, so interested in whatever. And this will even happen, with other blind people I've noticed too. I'll be so interested in them, wanting to get to know them, wanting to get to be with them. They could care less about me whatsoever. Or they just want to be basic friends, and they kind of get real, not shy, but they kind of become not really interested in talking to me because they kind of sense that I am interested in them. And this doesn't happen with every girl I meet, no. But how do you get rid of this thing of, I'm interested in them, but they're not interested in me. Therefore, my I guess, I don't know if it's my confidence or whatever, kind of drops, because it's kind of like, well, I've tried this thing. I'm so interested in them. They could care less about they could care less about me, but I when I really get to know them, not necessarily always in a sexual way, no, obviously not, first,
right.
I didn't just rush into it. My question is, what do you do in a situation like that to either, one, I get the fact when you say, you don't want to force into her, because not in a sexual way, but in just getting to know them. Because you're right, there are people that just they don't want to get to know you, even though you want to get to know them. But two, get your emotional, I don't know if it's emotional or what you want to call it, state into that neutral zone of,
right.
hey, I'm interested in getting to know someone.
Okay.
Don't really care who I meet, but just not to have them go away from me.
Got it. All right. So here's a suspicion, and again, this is a little bit of an intuition,
Right.
but I also know that it comes up with a lot of men.
Okay.
Women can do this too, but it's when we really are hungry, desperate,
Okay.
needing to find someone.
Yeah.
That's an immediate turnoff.
That's right. That's kind of, because I can tell also when women are kind of in that position as well.
Right.
And I like to date people who are in that desperate zone where they're so they'll take anybody.
Yes.
And I have friends that are girls that are kind of like that, and I don't feel like they're the type for me, because they're not, you're right. And because that desperate thing, it can go both ways. And two desperates, like you mentioned, the magnets thing.
Yep.
I mess with magnets, and you're right. They will repel each other, and that desperate is definitely the opposite of attraction, because
it is, Nick.
Yeah.
And so the big thing when that hunger, because sometimes we truly are hungry for love. God, I really want somebody in my life. And there's some really important steps to come into our own confidence and centeredness where we don't need that relationship. And one of the things is that very often singles will hate feeling lonely.
Yes.
And if we hate feeling lonely, we will actually attract loneliness. And I know that sounds ridiculous on some level, but the more what we resist persists.
Yes, I agree.
So if there's a part of you that is feeling lonely and doesn't like it,
yes,
what needs to happen is to make peace in your heart with your loneliness, to befriend the loneliness so that you're actually coming to it. I don't need anything, but I get to choose. And that's really attractive.
So in other words, instead of fighting it, welcome it.
Yes. Yes, that's exactly it.
That makes sense. Because you're right. We usually fight it, and I'm not lonely. I'm not lonely, and whatnot. And I've done that whole the affirmations and stuff like that people talk about a lot too. And when I say I'm not lonely, that only kind of reinforces the loneliness. It's like, but you are.
Yes. So we want to get in, and we won't be able to dive into it on this call, Nick, but we want to dive in. And for any other men, because I've just had this conversation recently, I have it frequently. Anytime that there is that hunger, that loneliness, that grasping, that is something that we need to work within. And when we come into that place where I no longer need it, I'm totally okay. We've heard the story of when I gave up looking, she showed up.
Right.
And so that's what is going to be an important next step for you, Nick, is to really come into that place of confidence no matter what.
Yes. And then one real quick thing.
Okay.
Is this webinar going to be recorded so we can rehear this info or not?
It is.
Okay,
it is. And that'll be available tomorrow.
Okay, good. I'd love to rehear this again, because as in that email I sent about some of the past webinars, every time I rehear it, I hear something new that is really wonderful. It's like, I didn't know that she said that before.
It's funny how that works, but that's a very common experience. So yes, the recording will be available tomorrow.
All right. That's good. And I'll book my session soon. I'm not exactly certain as to when, but I see what you're saying. So until the end of the week, then.
Yes.
And could you send out an email to us?
I will.
Yep. Before the time runs out, so we know.
Yep.
Okay.
I will do that.
All right then.
Many blessings. Thank you for having the courage to speak up.
All right then.
Thanks. All right. And let's see, let me come back over here and see what else I have in the questions. Let me check over here on Facebook. Let's see. Nothing there. Okay, perfect. Let's see what we've got here. And so, yeah, and sometimes, and there's more questions about women and their bodies and pain and menopause. And these are situations where it's really important to bring heart and to bring tenderness and to bring curiosity and to let go of any expectation, any way that you try to get somewhere, because it is that will actually push things away more. So it's really getting really innocent, vulnerable, and real about what is actually happening for you and happening for her, so that you can then navigate from there. So it's conversation, and it's not easy conversation. And that's where coming into your own willingness to be vulnerable, your own willingness to be real, your own willingness to not know. And when you don't know, you'll actually discover so much more. And so with that, let me go to the next one. Let's see. How do we get rid of what's under the rug? Oh, I teach hours on that topic. And it's actually twofold. I'll start with twofold. It's manyfold, but let me talk about two pieces right now. One is that it takes two to tango. It takes two to put that stuff under the rug. And so you've got to look at your part of what you've put under the rug, what you've ignored, what you haven't said. And you got to do your side. You got to clean up your side of the fence. And then you got to support her to clean up her side of the fence. And you can't force her to do that side, but you can create an invitation. You can create an environment where she's willing to begin speaking about what's been stuffed on her side of the fence, if you will, her side of the rug. And much of it is conversation, forgiveness. And there's some very specific processes, techniques when we get into particularly my conscious relating retreat and the whole of the Soul Love program series, Activating Soul Love, Loving Soul to Soul. Those programs take you into lots of techniques and guided processes to come to forgiveness. But if we talk about the bottom line, it is finding a place of forgiveness, because it is when we get to forgiveness, sometimes forgiveness of ourselves as well, for what we said, what we didn't say, what we did, what we didn't do, that process of self-forgiveness, other forgiveness, and sometimes forgiveness of life, if we've got a relationship with the divine, forgiving God, whatever our word is, and the circumstances. Like, there's so many things that we can be holding resentments to. And it's a step-by-step unravel that will really allow us to start clearing out what's under the rug. And again, there's some very specific techniques that I can't walk through all the pieces, but the bottom line is we got to start talking. We got to look at our side. We got to create a space for their side, and we got to get to forgiveness. So that's the first steps and the highlights of the path of how to clear out what's under the rug. And so I think if you guys have any more questions, I said I was going to go around an hour. I've already run over a little bit, but I also was really committed to serving the men tonight. I want to, if you've got anything else that you want to ask, please raise your hand or enter it into the comment box right now. And again, if you want to speak specifically, privately, one-on-one with me about what's going on in your love life or not going on in your love life, and I don't mean to laugh at that, because believe me, I know what that pain was like. I had my own journey with loneliness and desperation and grasping and trying to do it right and sex not working. Like, I've been there. And so, but whether you've got that partnership or you're seeking that partnership, but it's not what you want in your love life right now. It's not what you want in your heart space. It's not what you want in your bedroom sexual space. Then my passion in the world is to serve men and women. And there is really a special privilege for me when I get to serve the men, because I know that you then go out and serve my sisters. And I know you go out and create a better space for all of us. And this is a time where there is such a deep call for men to get to be who you are again. And there's a way of men being in service to other men and men being in service to women and women being in service to men. Like, we're all dancing this dance, but we each have to do our part. And so you've got to do your part. I actually heard this in the very first training I ever did, probably back in 2000, and I think it was actually the year 2000. And it's so incredibly true, is that we are each 100% responsible for what goes on in our relationship. And we spend so much time, and I've been there, done that. I could raise two hands on this one, looking over there and pointing over there. If you would stop, why don't you, and the blaming, and we don't look at what's going on over here. But the truth is, somebody else has said, when you're pointing over there, there's three fingers pointing back over here. Like, that's the truth. What's your 100% responsibility for what's going on in your relationship right now? Or if you're not in one right now, then looking back, what was your responsibility in those past relationships? What are you meant to carry forward from those relationships so that you can show up this time, next time, being the man that you truly are and creating and setting the space for a powerful relationship of the heart, a powerful relationship of your sexuality, a powerful relationship in life. And so if you want that direct support from me, go to ecstaticintimacy.com. Under what I offer, pick Igniting Soul Love Session. It is a private one-on-one session with me where we are going to dive into the blocks and the barriers that are showing up for you. We're going to look at what's going on in those blocks and barriers, and we're going to look at what it is that you actually want to create, and we're going to build a roadmap. We're going to look at what are the best next steps for you to get from the struggles and the challenges and the frustrations and to the love, the intimacy, the heat, the passion, the connection that you truly want. And what does that look like for you? Enter promo code men only, all capitals, no space, men only in the promo code field. And that when you register, it will immediately take you to a short profile form so that I can know a little bit more about you. And it will then take you directly to my calendar where you can schedule. I don't know if the spaces, there were 2 for tomorrow, are still available or not, but there are some spaces on my calendar for this week. So I look forward to that. Let me see what else has come in, and then we are going to close this for tonight. Oh, there was one comment. Thank you so much, Joanna. I'm using what you've taught me and it's working great. So thank you for that share. It's, as I said, it's an honor and it's a privilege. And any guidance for a single man looking for a partner to share retirement? Again, I need to know a little bit more specifics, but it's single man looking for a partner, clear out all the barriers to love in you. And that's one of the incredibly important things. We think that the problem is out there. We think we're not meeting the right one. We think the good ones are taken. We think that there's no one my age. There's so many stories that I hear that singles use to justify, and singles use to justify why they're not in a relationship. And this is the blessing and the pain, and it is not to point at you with blame, but it is to say that you also have the power. Like, you can change this. You have whatever's going on that's creating the not relationship, not meeting someone, is actually what's going on in you. And the number one place to look is in you. And so that is critically important. And if you're not meeting, then it's time to look inside you. And that would be a perfect opportunity for us to jump on the phone and talk more. And I noticed somebody that's saying you have to evacuate for the hurricane. So go ahead and book your session and just don't schedule it until after the hurricane. My assistant is like in the town where it's supposed to hit. So I'm already dealing with hurricane stuff and sending blessings, incredible blessings, to those of you that are on the East Coast and in those evacuation zones. I can only imagine what that's like. So just register and then schedule when the time is right for you, and blessings on that. And I've got just a couple more minutes. Let me see if I can get these last couple questions. And if you happen to be somebody that I don't get to your question on here, then I will grab that question and send you an email. Let's see. Let's see. There was a hand that went up here. Let me do this real quick. That should open up. Let's see. Okay. Your line is open.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so this might be rhetorical. Maybe you can't answer it in this time frame, but I guess just what's a good practice, or is there a good practice for opening and connecting with the heart, leading with the heart, versus some other ways of going about life?
Yeah, it's a big, again, it's like so many of this. This is why I do, in-depth programs and retreat weekends and things like that. But with that being said, where do you start? With the heart space, when we've got walls of protection, or where we've not been used to opening into that space of love. And the truth is, it's scary to love. Men and women alike. This is another one of our commonalities, is that it's like, oh, how do I really open my heart? How do I really? And sometimes it's so much easier to love than let ourselves be loved. And again, the first step is any barrier, any place. Very often, if we've had places where we got hurt in the past, we go, some part of us at the time, we may not remember it now, but we'll go, I don't ever want that to happen again. I'm never going to let that happen again. And those kinds of vows actually put up barriers. So we want to do a current inventory of, am I open? And if I'm not open, what's in the way? So that's the first part, because we got to clear out the muck. We got to take down the walls. We got to open that space up. And then the next, where you really take this deeper and move it forward, is intimacy really means into me you see. And it's vulnerable to let someone see and look into you. So it's building our vulnerability and our intimacy muscles, where they're getting to see the good, the bad, the ugly, the light, the dark. Sometimes we don't want to be seen for our light. Sometimes we don't want to be seen for our dark. Sometimes we hide both. But it's that building that comfort with truly being seen. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It resonates?
Yeah, I'm having that conversation more and more with my partner. So yeah, just being a single dad, it's like a lot of my energy has gone outward, and accepting it is
Yeah. Like, men are conditioned to give and to generate and to do. And then she wants you to feel, and she wants you to receive her love. And it's hard for a lot of men. And it's a step-by-step process to learn how to be seen in that way and how to still hold that presence of who you are as a man, and to open up that soft, tender, vulnerable space that every man has inside him. And it's a gentle, step-by-step, don't push it. Like, a man's heart space is actually like a woman's sexual space. And if a man tries to push into a woman's sexual space, she's going to run. If a woman tries to push into a man's heart space, he's going to run. So you can't push into your heart space either, but you can allow it step by step to open.
Okay.
That help?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. Good start to put more of my thoughts around. Yep.
Yeah. And then again, that's a place where we can get more specific when we dive into what are some of the unique ways that shows up for you.
And I've been learning more about chakras and I guess that connection of the belly with the heart and all that.
Yep.
You know.
Yep. Heart, belly, sex.
Yep.
And eventually beyond. But yes, really important connections.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I am going to talk to this. Let's see. I'm going to talk to this last question here, and then I'm going to have to close for the night. I'm somewhat ready to leave my 45-year marriage that has become 100% platonic because we're able to achieve intimacy, vulnerability. I have honestly tried until I met this incredible being that offers me unconditionally all that I've been missing. I want to stay in integrity. What do I consider? That's a deep question. And it's one that requires really going in and listening and looking at, after 45 years, there are no rules about what you should or shouldn't do. It's about finding the truth for you. And when I work with people that have been in long-term marriages, we want to really look at, not every marriage is meant to last. And some will end after 40 plus years. Some will end after just a few years. And some will end up staying together when they don't imagine that they could ever stay together. And there is no right answer for that. What's most important is that each individual takes the journey to find out the truth for themselves about what's really here. And integrity and ending a marriage, if ending is the pathway, when it's done, my experience is when it's done cleanly, when it's done honestly, when it's done in integrity, the cleanup, because there's always cleanup after a breakup. And truthfully, usually the longer the relationship, the more there is to clean up and complete with, because conscious endings are incredibly important. How we end this relationship has everything to do with what happens in the next relationship. And so I don't know, certainly without having some conversation, and even then I won't know, but I can offer better questions about the unique situation. And I know that a marriage of long-term, many decades, 40 plus years, has value. And it may or may not be your path, but it's worth looking at the real truth and situation for you and then moving from there. Because it's really easy to look over there and go, that's what I want. And it may be. And it may be everything that you've dreamed of and wanted. And it might be a reason to stop looking. It might be a distraction for looking at, what could actually shift in your marriage. So I don't have a specific answer for you, but the things to consider are, what else is possible in your marriage? What is your gut, body, heart, soul, all of this, once it's in integrity and out of its hurt. Because having a sexless marriage for a long time, there's a lot of resentment that goes with it. There's a lot of hurt. And one of the things that will allow you to, if you choose to complete that relationship, to complete it cleanly, will be to clean up whatever's under that rug, whatever resentments are there. And that's actually going to allow you, should you choose to leave, to start the other one more freshly, or to more cleanly, and have it work from the beginning. And in that cleaning up, it might also open up something in your marriage. So not a question that I can quote unquote answer, but those are some of the things to really look at. Is most importantly is to look at what didn't work, what's been swept under the rug, what isn't complete, and either clean it up and have it work in the marriage, or clean it up so that you can part with love and not resentment, where you can part knowing that it's the best thing for both of you. Because when we part, divorce or simple breakups aren't simple, but breakup where we're not married, when we can do that cleanly, where we've looked at the issues and we've come to that space of peace that we're meant to transition out of this relationship, it becomes so much more powerful for both people, and it empowers both people to move on and manifest something else that is actually in alignment and beautiful and supportive and heart-opening and passionate for both. So thank you for that question. I know that it's a deep consideration. So we're just at the 90-minute mark. I'm going to have to close for tonight. And with that, then I want to just one more time say, I know that I didn't get to absolutely everything, and I'm sorry. If you want more, if you want to speak to me one-on-one, go to ecstaticintimacy.com, go to what I offer, pick the Igniting Soul Love session, enter promo code MEN ONLY, all caps, no spaces. And once you register, you'll be taken to a short profile form and then directly to my calendar to schedule with me. It's $67 with that promo code. It's normally $197 on my website. And that will be available to you through the end of this week. And those who schedule immediately will get the immediate appointments. I cannot guarantee, if you wait towards the end of the week, when your appointment will be. So with that, I have huge gratitude for you as men showing up here, listening, asking the questions, taking a stand for love. Incredibly important, and I am immensely grateful to you. Please reach out, stay in contact, schedule your Igniting Soul Love session with me, and namaste. The divine in me sees and acknowledges the divine in you. Much gratitude.